Hi, everyone. We're here today to talk about the 2U roadmap contributions, a bit of an introduction to who 2U is. And I will actually be handing the mic over to a number of colleagues today who are going to be walking through different sections of our talk. And we'll obviously leave time for Q&A as well. We'll have each person give you a little bit of background and context into who they are, what their role is, and broadly speaking, what we're going to cover today is purpose, who we are, the products that we have, or what we do, and then what we're working on, which is the roadmap and contributions section that I think people are interested in chatting about today as well. All right, so without further ado, Ashley.
All right. Thanks, Marco. Good afternoon. It's good to see everyone. It's good to be here. This is my first conference, Open edX conference, that is. So I wanted to take a little bit of an opportunity. I know that you've already heard some stuff about sort of 2U post-acquisition of edX. I want to give a little bit of a story about kind of how we got there and what 2U was before that. I think it's helpful to kind of see some of the narrative around how we're learning and the sorts of priorities that we have. And also wanted to take the moment to introduce myself a little bit as well. I'll try to just sort of call out the sort of material aspects of things that might directly impact roadmap and contributions and things like that. So the first thing to say is that within the 2U organization, I'm the Senior Vice President of Learning Technology. I think it's important to know that that is a sort of a matrixed organization. We deliberately put sort of our technology contemplations more on the learning side of the business than on the engineering side of the business. You know, we really want to be informed by things like learning frameworks, which Ben spoke about a little bit, I think yesterday, and want to have influence and be able to have that visibility and line of sight into the couple of different modalities of learning that we facilitate, which I'll get into here in a moment. But I wanted to start with something that like really hit me, like slapped me in the face when I read it the first time. This is Julie Boonton. This is her first novel. She's a young novelist, and this is the first sentence of her novel. Tell me what you can't forget, and I'll tell you who you are. And maybe it's like an existential rub of sorts, but I hate the idea that you could source that piece of information from me and then make some prescriptive judgment about who I am. But the more I got to thinking of it, I kind of think that might be true. And I thought this was a good place to start, because if we think about what are those elements and those experiences that do define us, I think we have to start there when we're building any sort of technology. What is it that we're facilitating fundamentally? You know, and some of us might be, building tools and products, and some of us might be delivering pedagogies or content, but we're all delivering experiences. And I think this is an interesting thought experiment, just sort of more broadly. And it pairs really directly to another quote that I love, which is that public education does not serve a public, it creates a public. And so when you think about that concept of focusing in on that thing that is formative and changing, the next question is, well, how does the service of that to a population change that population? And I think as we're talking about scale, and we're talking about audience, and we're talking about packaging, and we're talking about delivery, this question and this observation also matters. And then the third, I'm not going to try to summarize this now, but we have to, of course, Benjamin, when he's thinking about what happens to a work of art in the age of mechanical reproduction, what happens when you have distributed and when you have derivative works that have just as high a fidelity of an original, how do we make sure that lack of scarcity doesn't erode the value of the art itself? And as a community that's concerned about education and impact at scale, I think that's also a really important question for us to be asking. So let's sort of draw a more solid line to what we're talking about today. You know, going back to the Boonton quote, what are the formative experiences and engagements we want to couple with online learning? How do we assemble, operationalize, distribute that to a public? How do we create a public with that? And then while also amplifying what's engaging, effective, and transformative about these experiences. You know, let's not throw baby out with bathwater, as we once said. So I think that's where we arrive at our combined purpose, and not put logos on the screen and talked about scale and some of these things, and I don't want to rehash what we've already seen, but I do want to sort of circle around maybe a couple elements of our joint partnership that he didn't speak to, and one is that 2U is also a global company, and I think that's important from an inclusivity perspective as well as from sort of an operational perspective. But that sort of global footprint and global consideration of what a public means is important to us, has been important to us, and will continue to be, obviously, with the composition of the Open edX community here and the edX community as well. So that's something that's not changing. We're also concerned about scale, but these numbers probably look a lot smaller than what folks in the edX and MOOC realm are used to seeing. And so I think one of the things where we're a little bit different, and one of the things that we can both benefit from each other's influence, is what we mean by scale and how we operationalize around that scale. And that's one of the things as a learning technologist I'm going to be really interested in, and it's been fascinating to hear from the community here how you contemplate that and what does engagement at scale look like. Another thing that we really focus on is retention, which to me is a metric that really points to engagement. I think we sort of have an adage that an engaged faculty, an engaging curriculum means engaged students, means retained students. Ultimately, we want those students to be achieving their learning outcomes or objectives, whatever those might be. And it's not my job, at least, to prescribe what those outcomes ought to be. But this is something that we're really focused on in another area of contribution that we're really looking forward to leaning in on. What is the learning science? What is the pedagogy? And also, what are the technical apparatus, tools, and experiences that can deliver a very high retention experience? So going back to sort of the books at the top of the introduction, engagement looks different in different forms. I'm going to take a lot more time engaging in a novel or an epic than I am a short story, a novella, a poem. And so that's why I want to kind of talk just a minute about how 2U has sort of arrived at our current state, because it has been a journey that we have learned from each step along the way. And I think in this instance, chronology matters. So we started in the degree space, which is really to say the graduate degree space, but have also since gone on to undergraduate degrees. And we really looked to partner with the leading universities in the world and facilitate that high touch experience to those students. Now, as a lot of graduate programs, especially, we're talking about very small cohort sizes. We're talking about classes of 15, 20, 25, moving into undergrad, maybe classes of 200. And so the way that you think about or contemplate a discussions forum is very different in that context than when you're talking about 1,000 or 5,000 or 10,000. Our kind of first big acquisition is now our executive education line of business. It's a company called Get Smarter, and these were short courses. These were really reskilling opportunities for working professionals that were 6 to 8 weeks. They were semi-structured, so there were weekly assessments that all of the students had to take at the same time, but how they got there was up to their own self-pace, and there weren't live sessions or sort of class meetings. And so that asked a second set of questions about engagement. How do you engage that population? What can degree learn from that? And what can exec education learn from degree? So we'll rinse and repeat a little bit here. Boot camps, a third acquisition, focused on really 3 to 6 months, intensive, full-time, not upskilling, but reskilling opportunities. Anant spoke about that a little bit. I won't rehash that, but as you might imagine, there are different types of intensities, community building, and engagement apparatus that you would use in that learning modality as well. So, again, how can we be, apply some metacognition here, be reflective, and learn from these existing line of businesses and actually become sort of a more holistic hybrid. And then finally, introducing the open courses and marketplaces. This is a direct ask for scale, for these open courses. And how can the work, the research, the learnings we've done and have yet to do apply again and lift all ships here. So that's a brief introduction to myself, to kind of what we're doing. I really want this to be the start of a conversation and an introduction. So please find me. Let's continue talking. I have the benefit, and I feel very lucky to be able to have sort of visibility into each of these lines of business. And I'm happy to talk about either thoughts, theories, or concrete observations that we've been able to make. But what I want to do now is pass it over to, I got to go back to Ed's slide. So we're just tying it all together, right? We're learning here. What do these lines of business do? We've seen that. I think this is the third version of this slide, but we're iterating. We want to move to the top right. I'll just say that. I think we all know what that means. But I do think that the learnings from each of these businesses and each of these communities, more importantly, is a material driver to get us there. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Seth, who will talk about what work has been doing, what has been going on. So, as you know, work didn't just start, a month ago, right? There's been a lot in progress. So thanks, Seth.
Thank you. Hey, everybody. Nice to meet you all. I'm Seth McCann. I am the product manager for what we call the Purchase Squad, We own the e-commerce system. I started at edX in like first thing 2019. I'm now part of edX2U, and I've started working on the e-com team about 2 years ago, and ever since that moment, I've been trying to get rid of the thing. So more on that later. All right, so what is edX2U doing? Well, we're looking at recommendations, personalization. We find that to be just essential as a digital consumer. We expect that we're getting relevant content served to us. So we're really kind of focusing in on that space. So I have a couple areas to talk about. This is kind of like more of our general learner experience, also some mobile work that we've done, and finally the e-commerce, a little plug for the e-commerce lightning talk coming up next. So to call out what we're doing, okay, so high level, we are thinking about it in like 3 R's here. It's like routing, retention, and recommendation. So routing, that's example of that is, what are you here for as a learner? Are you here to do a certificate? Are you just here to learn? Are you here to go down into degrees? Let's try to like route that, like a little bit of like a Google Maps style, visualize that as a learner and understand the path in general. Retention for us is focusing on programs. So have you bought a program? Do you have entitlements? Have you been consuming those entitlements? Let's keep you on track, keep you going through the program. Maybe you've bought a course that's part of a program, but you're not aware. How do the learner visualize and understand like what's next? And recommendation is a lot of skills, learner intent data capture, kind of like what skills are you looking for? What jobs are you trying to get? How do we best surface that at the right milestone in your learner journey? Let's see. So I think there's certain areas I want to touch. What we will be kind of focusing in on is the point of enrollment, then learner inactivity, and also we will, if once you complete a course, I don't know if you know the current experience tends to just end your course and that's it. So we will be celebrating that milestone and trying to move you on to the next step after that. Mobile experience. So we see the mobile experience as not just a supplemental experience for many learners. It is a primary experience. So we want to get to parity with our web view. So we're really doubling down there. We're doing a lot of work to reach that parity. I did want to call out the video download settings. That was something that came up during Anand's talk. We actually interviewed learners out in Africa to learn more about how they're using their devices and what they need. And one thing that stood out was just lo-fi video downloads. Like, so there's not a lot of storage space on their devices, not a lot of internet connectivity. So that's a big win for that, in addition to additional language support. We will continue to do that. I'm most excited about in-app payments as the e-commerce guy. This is kind of a prototype at this time, a huge opportunity for us. So we're really looking forward to see how that goes. So expect to see more of that down throughout the year. Finally, e-commerce. So you may have seen that we're deprecating our e-commerce system. I haven't done a good job advertising what we're doing though. So that's why I'm here. I wanted to meet people and talk about the commerce coordinator that we're putting in place. Basically, we're driving for simplification, extensibility, and just low cost of maintenance. Right now, it's about 80% of our time just keeping the current system running. We don't have like another thing that we're hiding from everybody. We are just working through that painful experience. So that is what I'll be talking more about at the Lightning Talk in the next session. So please join. I hope to see you there. That's it for me. I'll hand it over to Spencer to talk about the Educator Edition.
Cool. Thanks, Seth. I appreciate that. So my name is Spencer Taveri. I've actually been at 2U edX for 9 months now. So I joined in the summer of 2021, which was a very eventful summer, as everyone obviously knows now. I'm originally from Las Vegas, but now I'm based out of the Boston area. So hence the weird factoid about growing up in the American Southwest and gold prospecting, because my parents were weird. But, you know, that's how it goes. So I am a product manager in open courses, specifically work with 2 different squads right now. We call them internally Cosmonauts and Aurora, but largely they work with a bunch of educator tools. So a bunch of different products that end up making the educator experience more streamlined, more efficient. So that way downstream, the learner experience, therefore, is more efficient, more streamlined. Learners feel more heard, they feel more attention and more satisfied with that experience. So I want to kind of highlight a few things that we're working on in 3 different buckets. One bucket is small course instruction. So think about your courses where there's a lot of high touch, and you just need that level. And sometimes in the past it's been master's programs, but that could even be other types of programs that you just desire that high touch for. Course operations at scale, just making sure a lot of the things you need are in place, and can be used not just at the small level, but at higher levels and efficiently, so you don't get bogged down doing good pedagogical practices. And then improved authoring, like making sure it's easier increasingly to get good content on the platform. Cool. So just dive into a few things here. I'm using, oh no, what happened to the emoji for Olive just died. But I'm using a little bit, I forget, like having like a Mac with emoji and then all of a sudden converting it into a PC and then forgetting that that's going to happen. But just a little chart here, maple, nutmeg, and olive, just to showcase what release these things are in, or with olive, what release they might be in, because that's kind of TBD. But here with small course introduction, we have a few things. Reusable rubrics for auras. You probably have seen that if you went to the auras talk. But just making it so that you can reuse rubrics that you've created, which instead of for every aura you have having to recreate it, that's a good thing because it's a pain. Gradebook MFE, just turning the gradebook into an MFE. There's a lot of process of that going on right now, obviously, of converting things over. Team assignments, again, an awesome thing with auras now, better pedagogical decisions to have people together and working on something. Potentially in Olive, new auras grading experience was all show in a second. Live integration with Zoom, and auras refactor, because auras have been kind of the same sort of technical mess for a while, and to do more things on it, we're going to refactor it to more modern technology. But let me dive into the staff grader just really quickly. This is something the Aurora squad, which we call internally, has been working on. This is a new grading experience for auras that's kind of more like Easy Grade Pro or any of like the staff graders that you might have heard of other for grading open responses. It allows you to assign things, allows you to kind of break things up and make sure there's not conflicts on grading. Everything's on platform. You can do file preview like here. Like I mentioned, the coordination is directly on there so that people can, like different staff members can come on and actually just like pick a thing to grade on or go through a set number of grading assignments like a lot of other platforms do without having to download, re-upload like a lot of course teams I know currently have to do. And we support a bunch of different files, JPEGs here, for example, like image files, but also like doc and a PDF as well. So you can have those previewed right there without having to download them, which is super convenient. In that second bucket, we have like those course operations at scale things again. How can we make sure these tools work for many people so we can make better pedagogical decisions? Special exams dashboard, high overview of like where did the either proctored or timed exams that we have on platform, what are their status, getting a good feel for that. Bulk email converted to MFE, program level discussion integration. Currently we're working on LTI for special exams, which is something we're excited for so that we can quickly port between different providers more easily. Schedule by date email functionality for bulk email. Structure dashboard MFE conversion. You might see a theme here with a lot of MFE conversion, definitely continuing to happen. Insights 2.0, our data needs continue to have to evolve and our partners need data in more meaningful ways. And so working on that, and more publisher UI improvements. And remember, the little weird bars are olives. Just imagine that you have a little nice olive right there. Let me go back. So quickly, special exams dashboard, just to kind of show you what kind of data you can see really quickly in this. You can quickly see the status of their onboarding. So for if you have onboarding exams in a course, just to make sure this is the student that is supposed to be taking these exams and just get them set up. You can see if they were rejected or if it's expired, they have to redo the exam. You can see those statuses and apply and do what you need to do on it. And even further, you can now also just see what is the status of their exams in one centralized place on platform without having to use external tools or anything like that. So that's nifty. And that's again like to the scale thing, like making sure things are in one place so it's easier to do these operations without having to jump all over the place. And last but not least, improved authoring. We have the text editor, and so all the editors are bolded, so that's what we're going to talk about. But text editor, course import validation and logging, video editor. Heard a lot about Blockstore powered content libraries, visual problem editor, complex library authoring, taxonomy, which is exciting as well. A lot of work going on right there to get things on a platform with taxonomy, and then course level LTI integration. But the editors, one thing it's just about making the studio experience, better and better so that better content is easier to create. So with the focus on increased usability for educators by reducing the copy and pasting of identifiers, like making it super simple, and leveraging something that we've worked on in-house, the edX Paragon design system. We've created a new text editor that's functionality for data tables. The program editor that's being worked on has no need for Markdown anymore. So yay for like making things easier for educators to just get their hands on and make things quickly without having to get bogged down in syntax. And soon the video editor rather, to have video preview right in it. And also no need to like copy obscure ID codes and like paste them to like find what you need to look for. So with that, I will pass it on to Mariana.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Mariana Hernandez-Barroso. I am an associate product manager on the enterprise theme. I've been with edX for about 2 years now. If you're kind of confused as to what the enterprise theme is, we work specifically with other organizations, companies, universities who are looking to provide edX for either their employers, their students, or affiliates. And so with that, I wanted to introduce 3 focus areas that we've finalized for enterprise in actually the recent weeks. And so over the course of the rest of this year, going into early next year, we are hyper-focused on customer enablement and account activation. So what this means is when a prospect comes to edX and is interested in providing edX to their organization or university, we're able to get them started and learning and handing out subsidies to their learners incredibly quickly. Our second area of focus is program measurement. And so I've actually attended a couple of talks where the value of understanding the return on investment for programs such as edX to administrators, essentially showing the buyer, the organization, why they should continue to subsidize education for the employees and learners is hypercritical. And our final area of focus is learner engagement. And so with learner engagement, we are essentially kind of calling out that we have learners on the B2C side, right, who are obviously important, but from the B2B perspective, there are nuances that aren't represented on the B2C experience that we need to highlight and understand. How can we make sure that learners who have access to edX through their organization understand not only how to access edX, but also understand what actually is being subsidized? And so going into learner engagement, some of the recent projects that we've released, one most notable is Learner Portal, which I will be jumping into in the next slide. But essentially, it's a B2B specific dashboard for a learner to understand not only what courses are made available to them through the enterprise that they're associated with, but also what courses, what skills are important for them. And we'll be getting into skills a little bit more, but it's a really awesome experience for us to be able to provide a targeted experience to B2B learners. Apologies. In addition to the Learner Portal, we also recently released course suggestions by career path. So, if a B2B learner were to tell us, are they looking to get promoted? Are they looking to pivot? We have a selection of courses recommended based on skills that they're looking for. We've also created the ability for administrators to assign courses and enroll learners in courses. So I think this goes into this idea of required learning or mandatory courses that learners should be taking, but we've done so in a way that really takes the burden off of the learner. And then we've started playing around with program nudges. So I know Seth mentioned this earlier, but if a learner starts enrolling in a course for a program that has additional courses, how can we get them to continue learning, especially if they have a subscription license? Our current work right now is trying to understand how can we continue to invest in this concept or notion of pathways. So in addition to programs, if a learner is trying to pivot to a different career, what are the courses and the mix of courses, right? Not just from one provider, but from all of the providers that we have accessible or they have accessible from their library. How can we essentially provide a path or a journey through edX to get to that final position? And then in the future, we're looking to focus on presenting courses that are highlighted or recommended based on their organization, and also just get a learner learning, right? So that's incredibly important. And I think, there's a lot of really interesting work, but I think foundationally, Learner Portal has been something that we've been working on and released a bit ago, but this is the enterprise learner experience, which highlights clicking on find a course, courses that are available to B2B learners or that are made available from their organizations. So again, just getting into this notion of B2B learners sometimes have subsidies. So in the top right corner here, you see subscription status. So it's highlighting the subsidy that they have been given from their organization, what the status of that subsidy is, and then understanding the library that they've been given access to. The second focus area that we have is enablement and account activation. And so, like I mentioned before, this is how can we get a company, a university, an organization started on edX quickly. So a lot of that work, and it's a lot of work that I'm heading up with our Quokkas team, has been how can we set up native integrations that are almost cookie cutter, right, for LMSs or LXPs like Blackboard, Canvas, etc. And then the Explore catalog is showing to prospective buyers what are the courses that enterprise clients have access to. How can we present the experience in such a way that is more clear cut than just going to the B2C edX.org page. And so currently, and hopefully this will be wrapped up in the next couple of weeks, I'll knock on wood for that, we will be releasing an update to the self-service LMS and SSO configuration. So again, with these integrated channels, how can we make it so that customers can essentially self-serve and create their own connection to edX and show courses on their own LMS or LXP? In the future, we have quite a number of things on the roadmap. One of them being, with this integrated channel idea, how can we also help administrators for these organizations understand if there's a problem with the integrated channel connection, how can you self-serve solving that? It's been a lot of our burden in terms of understanding what is going on with a customer's configuration and how can we solve that. And so I think that this will be, not the coolest, but definitely a super valuable stepping stone for us to get there. Administrator and learner onboarding, walking admins and learners through edX to explain how you can enroll in a course, what everything meant on the learner portal that I just showed you. And finally, something just a little bit more aesthetic in the sense that admins can configure the brand or the color of the learner portal and show the logo of their organization. So I wanted to share something that we've been working on for a bit now, and this is the self-service LMS and SSO configuration screen. So essentially, we have around 6 LMS or LXP integrations that customers will be able to essentially self-serve and connect. I'm not going to dive in too much just to keep you guys waiting. We have an in-depth talk at 3:45 in D112, which will go over exactly what we're talking about when we talk about integrated channels and connecting edX to other LMS or LXPs. Our final area of focus is program measurement. So again, it's highlighting this idea or notion that for admins and learning and development teams, we need to be able to show and help them convey the value of upskilling and continuous education. And so with that, we have been releasing and are currently thinking about how we can continue to improve program measurement, showing return on investment. So administrator analytics is something that we released in late 2020 and released full force in 2021, essentially showing learning hours, skills, enrollments in a way that admins could download a report and share that with, either their executive sponsor or an upper level executive on the learning and development team. So again, I think this buys into this idea of we know and we all know that education is important, but how are we conveying the impact of this education? And additionally, we've launched skills pathways, which I mentioned earlier. How can we recommend courses based on skills that we've started to measure? We've done some improvements to the learner progress report. And then we're currently working on learner outcome surveys. So when a learner takes a course, that's all well and good. A certification is incredible, but how can we take that course experience and show the hands-on implications of what that course certification or that completion means for their work? In the future, we're also thinking about and working on understanding how can we maybe leverage a different provider for administrator analytics, and also start to think about skills assessments. So when a learner is self-reporting or interested in a skill, what does that mean in terms of courses that should be recommended? So this is the example or a demo of the administrator analytics. So you can see that there are a couple of different tabs that show, in my opinion, a lot of really cool visualizations that not only convey the importance and value of their learning program, but also provides insights to the administrator as to what types of courses, what skill clusters, which you can see right there, it's gone. But what skill clusters are your learners really enrolling in, and what does that mean for the type of courses that your learners are interested in? And so, I think that we have started to focus in on these three areas quite in depth, and we're really excited to see, what comes next. So in closing, I think that I can speak for all of us in terms of being really interested in seeing where we can go together.
So I think we're going to have all the speakers come up and use this for questions and hand this around for questions. And we're going to try and use this to answer the questions.
Any questions for the group? Just wait to have the microphone before you ask.
Hi, I'm Nacho Espujol from Universitat Politécnica de Valencia in Spain. I'm asking about for small enterprises or for small businesses. We have had some businesses that have come to us because they wanted to buy 1 or 2 or 3 certificates. And the problem is for the invoice, that you have to give them the invoice of the credit card. You cannot have one with their bad number and these kind of things. Are you thinking on these small developments to let businesses buy small amounts that then they can see that they are interested in and bring and go to the next level?
Yeah. So this is something that I'm personally focused on with my team of how can we get to the point where we have those self-service purchase experience for enterprise clients that don't want, thousands of courses, but are looking for those 3. And I think we're on the path to getting to that point, but it's definitely still a little bit of ways. It's something that we are hyper aware of, and it's a pain point that we have to approach from a couple of different perspectives. But it's something that I'm pretty much focused on.
Hi, Mariana and Spencer, you both talked about data analytics and what's next for the pipeline. I was wondering, I mean, Tableau is not open source, obviously, but is there a plan to build an open source or rebuild the open source analytics platform?
Oh yeah, I gotta make sure I'm close enough to this so this doesn't fall off, or we get feedback. So making sure I'm in the right place. So long term, the Insights 2.0 work would be pulling a lot of that, a lot of the visualizations and tools that we have that course teams currently use on our platform, and we would be doing so there. We're also, I didn't put on there, we also have retooled internally some of our pipelines as well as like anticipation of that work. But we're looking at things to like get more like time series involved and like get to different levels there with our data visualizations on Insights. The other thing we're looking into is also like a lot more learner level data. Where else on platform can it exist? Because we found that it currently wasn't being used as much. So we're trying to look for like, hey, where else on the platform can we start inserting that learner level data, that data that's for like high touch, because it wasn't being very utilized where it currently is. So we're kind of not only changing Insights, that's a long story, but also like thinking where else can we put data so it's more useful for course teams specifically. I believe so. I mean, that would be my guess ultimately. Yeah, I think, but TBD.
Yeah. From the enterprise side, so we are currently leveraging Tableau for admin analytics, but it is on our radar to look into, and I call that Plotly, but that's an open source data visualization tool that's on the roadmap. So I'm expecting that we will be moving to something like that.
Thanks. Are you going to integrate the 2U products such as bootcamps to the LMS? And if you are, how's it's going to work?
Yeah, that's a good question. So our intention broadly at 2U is to continue to bet on open source. So each of those 3 lines of business, when they were established, created, or acquired, already had sort of their own stack of learning technology. So Bootcamps was using Canvas, proprietary. Exec Ed was using Moodle, and they're still currently on that. And then Degree had sort of a bespoke LMS that we had built internally. Right now, I mean, a big contemplation and a big motivation for this whole merger here is to be able to start utilizing the Open edX platform as much as possible. From a learning science perspective, the more shared tools that we have, the more we can learn from, the more we can aggregate that data. So absolutely, that's the plan. Part of what's nice about the fact that we sort of have started, or at least the Exec Ed business started with another open source platform, is that a lot of the tools that they're using there are also open source and transferable. One of the things I'm doing here is learning a lot about what are those implications. We run a lot around the LTI, IMS standards for the reason that creates something of a scaffolding to be able to start borrowing those tools as experiences even before we arrive at that inflection point where we're sort of all on a similar stack. But that is absolutely our intention to be able to do so. And for me, this is a first conference, a first look at these things, and with all of your help and with the help of the team, sort of my team's broader responsibility is going to be trying to identify, well, what are those meaningful and material experiences, tools, functions that we can actually start doing.
All right, thanks everyone. We'll be here until we need to disappear in 5 minutes for the, I presume, next session. Thanks everyone.